the conversation surrounding Brexit before the vote and after the vote has only seemed to be able to be about immigration, and I felt like it almost came down to a vote about immigration and not about whether we were going to be part of the European Union or not.
Would you say you're political? If so, what are your inclinations and why?
Yes, I'd say I'm political. I've voted at every election that I've been able to. So I've voted Liberal Democrat and I voted Conservative in the past. So I kind of flip between the two, kind of believe more in the Conservative ideology on economics and people being able to, like, it doesn't matter where you start in life, you should be able to achieve what you can. And it seems cyclical that there's one government that comes in, spends all the money and empties the piggy bank, and the next one has to pick up all the pieces. And there never seems to be any long-term strategy.
Okay, everything that you just said I didn't understand. So I guess that answers that I'm not political in that sense. So I never really knew what Labour was, what Lib Dems were, what Conservatives were. I've never known it as that. Like, I once met David Cameron, I didn't even know what party he was. I still don't know what party he is. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'd say I'm political in the sense that I care about women's rights, I care about, you know, the refugee crisis, and I talk a lot about these sorts of issues, and so anybody would be able to say that, oh, that person's political. Yeah, I don't know if that... I've never actually thought about it like that, and I don't know, I guess it's an identity thing where it's like, where does politicalness lie? Is it in, you know, your government and you know Lib Dem from, I don't know, the Green Party, or is it actual, like, what you stand for in your little different ideologies? And yeah.
I think my first encounter with politics was when a local MP, she came to my secondary school when I was 15 years old and she gave a speech. And funny enough, she was Bangladeshi, she working class, grew up in London. And to see her stood on the stage speaking to, you know, hundreds of, you know, teenagers when we were 15, 16, it really inspired me. And then when I was 18, I started getting politically active. I feel a lot of people care about issues, but what we don't realise is how deeply they're affected by politics. And when I was 18, I made that connection and I thought, okay, right, so I care about the environment, therefore I need to get involved in politics, because we're making policies about the environment. I wasn't so much active in a particular party until after Brexit, to be honest. I was quite an armchair kind of supporter. I joined the Liberal Democrats, and shock horror not, but so when I joined them because of Brexit, and in the past few months, it's almost been 11 months now, I've been really active. I work a lot with the Young Liberals, so they're kind of a youth wing of the party. So I'm kind of, my official title is like, I'm Vice Chair of Campaigns, and we had elections, I kind of really helped with that. And also I do other things with the National Party. Almost sometimes you do feel trapped. You wake up in the morning and you check your messages, you're like, oh God, am I going to be able to escape it? But I think because I care about it so much, and I see it affects, you know, everything we do in life is affected by politics. And I would encourage more people to be so, regardless of who you support, you know. If you care about an issue, necessarily you don't have to get involved in a political party. There are many, many, many other ways you can get involved, so.
I have been brought up and always have been very left-wing. I was brought up to believe in the Labour Party, and then I moved away from the Labour Party, and now I'm back with the Labour Party.
Yeah, kind of the same. I suppose it's kind of all scattered on the left. I think maybe kind of being chained to one party the whole time is not necessarily the best thing, and that's why I kind of moved away from Labour for a bit as well. But since the kind of rise of Corbyn and that whole movement, I've restored faith in the Labour Party, and that's kind of who I'm rooting for at the moment.
What are your thoughts on Brexit?
Oh, I didn't even see that question, man. I don't see it as a positive thing that we are more supportive of the segregation than of coming together as a community. But at the same time, I don't know a lot about the EU, so I can't speak too much about that.
I think the EU is a fantastic idea. I don't think it's been implemented well. I love the fact that countries are working together, but there's other things that I don't like about it. I don't like the fact that our members of the European Parliament, the MEPs, are not allowed to propose any laws. They're not really parliamentarians because of that. Instead, the Commission does, and they're not elected. And that, for me, as a democracy side, doesn't square very well. I think that Brexit will eventually be a success because there's more and more trade being done around the world between the UK and other countries that are not in the EU, and it feels like it's not going very well. There's more and more bits of it are disintegrating. There's Italy's recent elections that are not going very well. You've got rising unrest in France, and nobody's listening. Everybody's saying we need more and more Europe, and yet the citizens are consistently saying that they don't want it. We don't want it forced upon people, and nobody in Brussels is listening. And I think if they did, then people would be more open and receptive to the EU as an ideology.
You know, obviously after the vote, which was to me quite shocking, a lot of people that I would have thought, young people I'd studied with, people I'd gone to school with, I wouldn't say a lot actually because there's not that many of them, or I've cancelled them out my life, but they did come out being like, oh no, that they did want quite a harsh like Brexit, and you know, they came up with all these like opinions that to me, I didn't quite realise that that's how they were thinking. And these are, I guess, millennials or whatever you want to call them. And then that's when I just thought, oh, okay, there's like still loads of work to be done.
It's not easy to generalise anymore. So, you know, you think you know our generation, but you know, and then things like that happen and you're quite shocked and you're like, okay, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I just find it really saddening just to see, you know, how truly divided we are.
I think that anything that results in more borders around the world being put up is negative, but I don't think the European Union was this incredibly wonderful parliament that only did good in the world and only represented good. Before the vote and after the vote has only seemed to be able to be about immigration, and I felt like it almost came down to a vote about immigration and not about whether we were going to be part of the European Union or not. In the aftermath, the rise in hate crime, people feeling secure in their views and feeling like they could more open to expressing their bigotry is scary. But I also think on the other hand, a sort of snobbery that surrounded people who voted to remain and towards people who voted for Brexit. This idea that the only reason they voted for Brexit was because they were too stupid or they didn't really understand what they were doing really sort of got to me. And it's very different being in London to being in other areas of the UK where they just aren't getting the resources that they need. So then it's very easy to blame other people that are coming into your community and feeling like they're being a drain on your resources when, you know, everybody knows well, not everybody knows, that's the problem, but that's a very easy excuse for the media and politicians to sell people, and it's something that people feel very strongly about, and that's sort of my issue with Brexit, that it did come down to a migration issue.
Yeah.
I just think it's a very complicated issue, and
Yeah,
there's definitely not like a right or wrong answer so much, and it has brought up a lot of unpleasantness to the surface. But maybe that needed to be brought up so it can try to be resolved.
Yeah.
Who knows, really?